Ohio to discuss the situation there with the trade realm with the people there in federal assistance?
I've spoken with every official in Ohio, Democrat and Republican, on a continuous basis, as in Pennsylvania, and we will be implementing an awful lot into the legislation here, and I will be entering some.
Well, President Biden says he will finally visit East Palestine a full month after the toxic train disaster. He didn't set a time or date, and interestingly blew off the idea just a week ago. But better late than never, I guess. In the time Joe's waited, more than 700 tons of contaminated soil and nearly 2 million gallons of liquid have been collected from the site. And health concerns have gotten worse. Workers cleaning up the site are reportedly getting sick. And independent researchers think toxic chemicals detected could pose long-term health risks if they continue at current levels. That finding flies in the face of officials who've been telling residents everything is safe.
If those homes have been tested by the state and given a clean bill of health, yes, as a father, I trust the science.
Absolutely, yes. The air is safe based on the data. And we really need for the local community to trust their state and local government if they've had the test.
The water that has been tested and the air that has been tested is coming back with no adverse health impact levels.
Jesse, how are these people supposed to trust anything that they're told about their situation when they were told everything was fine, and now the people cleaning up the site are getting sick? They're seeing it firsthand, they're feeling it, and then they're told, just trust the data that it's okay.
Yeah, you can't trust these people after they've lied to you for so many years. And it would go a long way if the president would go there and put his arms around people and drink some water and say, we'll throw as much money at you guys for as long as you live so you don't get sick long term. When someone says, Katie, I'll get to it at some point, that means never. That's like when you say, when's Greg going to grow up? At some point, Greg's going to grow up. He's never going to grow up. He's never going to East Palestine. He might as well just admit he's never going. If I was president, this is what I would do, Katie. I would visit every place. If there was a flood here, I'd go to the flood. If there was a shooting there, I'd go to the shooting. Black, white, rich, poor. I'd go to Indian reservations. I'd go to the border. I'd even go to Canada.
No.
I would be on the road constantly, kissing babies, hugging people, fake crying, and giving speeches about how I was going to stand with the people for whatever situation called for. This guy doesn't do it, and that's all we're asking him to do. And the only reason he's saying at some point now is because he's been asked about it, what, a dozen times by reporters?
Yeah. Well, the residents there aren't buying it, and they're still pretty outraged. Take a listen.
But how long is this going to take? I'm watching my family slow dying. They're dying slowly now in front of my eyes.
My skin fell off my hands from grabbing the machines when I went back to work. I couldn't breathe, and I quit my job.
Do I have to wait until I have cancer, or my kids are sick, or my grandkids are sick, before you guys are going to do anything? That's not right.
Do the right thing. Tell Alan.
We're going to do the right thing. We're going to do the right thing.
I'm begging you, by the grace of God, please get our people out of here. Yes.
You know, Kayleigh, today the White House press secretary was saying they don't have a plan for Biden to go there. I would say it's too late for him to go. I mean, it would just amplify the fact that he's leading from behind and not even going after Pete Buttigieg went.
I couldn't agree more with you. It's way too late.
Yeah.
They set up Pete Buttigieg as the fall guy on this. That's what this was intended to do. In Buttigieg world, who knew that existed? There's a Buttigieg world. According to Politico, they're very upset about it.
It's just Chasten.
Chasten, I think it is. Pete Buttigieg has taken a lot of bullets for the president on this, is what the anonymous Buttigieg world person said. It's too late to go, and this is the president who's supposed to be so empathetic. How many times have we heard that? But this is the same guy who laughed at a mom whose 2 sons died of fentanyl, the same guy who looked at his watch as Marines came home from Afghanistan, the same guy who, when asked about Afghans falling from the plane, said 4 or 5 days ago, and the same guy who talked about Zoom when asked about East Palestine. So we wouldn't expect much more from him.
Yeah, Jessica, I mean, this is why people don't have trust in their local or federal officials, because they've been told that things are safe, and they've been told that the president is empathetic and he cares about the issue of cancer, for example, and he's just been MIA.
So we could put together a montage of Republican and Democrat officials all saying it's fine. Mike DeWine,
They're all
Johnson
part of the
local.
government. They're all
Right.
part
No,
of the
but
government.
I'm saying it's important to this because it has turned into just that Joe Biden is a fake empath, which I would fiercely disagree with. And I don't know how people can trust their government. I think that more should show up for each and every one of these town halls. And if you're concerned about the money, which the government always is, what is the cost of relocation until all of these tests are consistently clear versus what the cost could be long-term for this, right? If you do end up with a situation where there are long-term cancers, God knows what happens when you have toxic chemicals in your water like that. It's into the Ohio River. That's something that I'm shocked that we're not talking more about. It does seem, and President Biden gave an interview over the weekend, I believe, about what the response actually looked like. In fact, the EPA was on the ground 2 hours after this happened. It is not something that has been neglected by the administration whatsoever. Pete Buttigieg going is frankly more than Elaine Chao did when she was transportation secretary. She never visited one single derailment,
If they were Flint,
including.
the president would have been there. If they were Flint, Michigan, the president would have been there.
People in Flint, Michigan got ignored for a very
And they
long
shouldn't
time.
have been.
No,
They shouldn't have
absolutely,
been.
they shouldn't have been. But to say that, what you're saying is basically President Biden would only care if it was black people, because black people vote for President Biden. But these are 5,000 poor white people who didn't vote for President Biden. Frankly, a lot of poor white people voted for President Biden because he does actually care about everybody. Maybe not in East Palestine. That is a red state. Odds are that they did not vote for him and voted for President Trump again.
So you
but
agree?
don't do that. I don't agree.
Well, I think this problem's about to get a lot
it's
bigger.
not agreement.
It sounds like it.
I think the problem's going to get a lot bigger because
No.
the Ohio River doesn't stay in East Palestine. It flows downstream with all those chemicals, Greg.
I don't think he's a fake empathic. Is that what you said?
Empath.
Fake empath. That's like basically, he just has his priorities backwards, because while this is happening, inside our country, he's pushing for this global health equity thing that obligates Americans to hand over something like a fifth of their medical supplies to the World Health Association. That doesn't mean that, like, when we use these supplies and we're done, we hand it over to them. We're not even first in line. So our health actually becomes secondary to global health, and which doesn't make any sense because obviously China has the World Health Association in their back pocket. So it's, again, one of those things where how do Democrats or liberals explain the gulf between the passion they have for these abstract concepts like pronouns and inequity, and then just totally miss the boat on this stuff? Like, this is thousands of Americans suffering. But I think politics makes them completely blind to the suffering that's in front of them. How else is that? I mean, this explains D.C. too, right? So, it's like they're all on board with this cushy global BS, while right here, there's God knows what's happening in this country.
Do you think that the same goes for, let's say, a Republican president who doesn't go somewhere where there's been a mass shooting? And he doesn't show up and say, we've lost dozens of people to gun violence in here that was actually, let's say, a product of racist messaging about the impact of brown people in the country, like the Walmart in El Paso, or he doesn't show up in Ohio after a bar is shot up and a bunch of people lose their lives, doesn't go to Pulse nightclub.
He was in Ukraine, though. Like, you should come back and go to East Palestine. You're getting
So he wasn't in
All
Ukraine.
right, we gotta run.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.